the sound that echoed across stars. The chamber aboard the Stellar Accord flagship was silent, a vast and polished space that seemed designed to humble anyone who entered. The air was cooler than Captain Elias Harper preferred, but he stood tall, his Earth Defense Force uniform pristine, and his expression calm. This was a room where deals shaping the galaxy were made, but today it felt more like a gladiator's arena. Across from him sat the representatives of the Stellar Accord, an alliance of alien species that dwarfed humanity in power and influence. Each delegate was a symbol of their kind. The crimson-scaled Ambassador Valric, whose sharp claws tapped rhythmically on the crystalline table. The misty, translucent form of Speaker Oran, who floated gracefully within its containment field, and the imposing General Durak, a four-armed titan whose eyes bore the weight of countless battles. The silence dragged on, a tactical move Harper had come to recognize. They wanted him to speak first, to show nerves or desperation. But Harper wasn't like most diplomats. He wasn't chosen for this mission because he was polished or eloquent. He was chosen because he was human in the purest sense, unpredictable, resilient, and maddeningly effective. Harper let his gaze drift across the room, meeting each alien's stare without flinching. The silence wasn't uncomfortable to him. It was familiar. Humans had a knack for enduring things others couldn't. Then, breaking the tension not with words but with an almost thoughtless motion, Harper raised his right hand and cracked his knuckles. The sound, sharp, deliberate, and oddly menacing, reverberated through the chamber. It was a sound that no alien physiology could replicate, a distinctly human quirk. Harper didn't think much of it. It was a habit he had developed long ago, a way to focus his thoughts. But the room's reaction was anything but ordinary. Ambassador Valric's claws froze mid-tap, his slit-pupilled eyes widening. Speaker Oran's glowing form pulsed erratically, the equivalent of a startled gasp. General Durak shifted, his four hands flexing involuntarily as though preparing for a fight. "What is that?" Valric's voice was low and cautious, the translator rendering his alien growl into a smooth but uneasy tone. Harper glanced at his hand, amused. "Cracking my knuckles," he said, his voice calm and measured. "It's a human habit. Relieves tension." The room remained frozen for a beat longer before Oran spoke, its tone quivering. "It is unsettling." Harper arched an eyebrow. Unsettling. To beings who had seen the horrors of interstellar war. He tucked that observation away, but before he could say more, General Durak leaned forward, his voice a deep rumble that seemed to shake the air. "That sound." Durak paused, his four eyes narrowing as he searched Harper's face. "I have heard it before, 15 cycles ago, on the battlefield." Harper's curiosity piqued, but he kept his face neutral. "Oh, do tell." Durak's massive frame tensed as though reliving a memory. "We faced a human mercenary on the ice plains of Taraxis IV. One soldier against an entire battalion. We thought it would be easy." His voice darkened. "Then we heard that sound. The cracking. It came before destruction." The other delegates shifted uncomfortably, their collective attention now on the general. Harper remained silent, letting the story unfold. "The human moved through us like a shadow, faster and deadlier than anything we'd faced. Our weapons were useless. Our formations crumbled. By the end, over 100 of my warriors lay defeated. And the human." Durak's fists clenched. "The human walked away unscathed. That sound, your sound, was the last thing many of them heard." The silence that followed was heavier than before. Harper could feel the weight of the delegates' stares, a mixture of fear, awe, and suspicion. "I assure you," Harper said finally, a faint smile tugging at his lips, "it's just a habit." Valric's claws resumed their rhythmic tapping, slower this time. "Humans are strange creatures," he muttered, almost to himself. "So small, yet so dangerous." "That's one way to put it," Harper replied. He allowed the silence to linger just long enough to make them uneasy before shifting the conversation. Now, about the trade negotiations. Perhaps we can come to an agreement that benefits all parties. The delegates didn't respond immediately. They were still processing what had just transpired. And Harper knew it. Humans, he thought with a flicker of amusement, had a way of making their mark without even trying. As the conversation finally resumed, Harper couldn't help but feel a spark of satisfaction. In their galaxy of advanced civilizations, humanity had once been dismissed as insignificant. Now, they were something else entirely. A mystery, a threat, a force to be reckoned with. And all it took to remind them was a simple, familiar sound. Little did Harper know, the echoes of that sound would ripple far beyond this chamber, setting in motion events that would shape the future of the galaxy. Shadows of fear. The corridors of the stellar Accord flagship were dimly lit, their walls lined with alien metals that hummed faintly with energy. General Durak strode through them, his forearms clasped tightly against his armored chest. The rhythmic thud of his boots on the metallic floor echoed through the hall, but his mind was elsewhere, trapped in memories of a battlefield long past. Behind him, Ambassador Valric scurried to keep up, his crimson scales dull under the muted lighting. "General," Valric hissed, his tone laced with frustration. "You cannot be serious. That sound, whatever it is, cannot possibly warrant this level of concern." Valric stopped so abruptly that Valric nearly collided with him. Turning slowly, Valric fixed all four of his eyes on the ambassador. "You weren't there, Valric," he growled, his voice low and menacing. "You didn't see what one human did to my battalion. I lost warriors, friends, because we underestimated them. Because I underestimated them." Valric flinched, but his pride forced him to stand his ground. "Humans are clever, yes, and unpredictable. But we're diplomats, General, not soldiers. The human in that chamber is no threat to us. Is he not?" Iraq's voice was sharper now, his tone cutting through the ambassador's protest. "Did you see the way he stood there, completely unfazed by our silence? Did you notice the confidence in his eyes? That is the same confidence I saw in the eyes of the mercenary who defeated us. Humans are never what they appear to be." For a moment, neither spoke. The quiet hum of the ship's systems filled the void, a stark contrast to the storm of tension between the two. Finally, Valric turned and continued down the corridor, his pace slower but no less deliberate. "I've seen what humans can do when cornered," he continued, his voice quieter now, as if speaking more to himself than to Valric. "Their resilience, their ingenuity. They turn weaknesses into strengths, use the unexpected as a weapon." That sound, the cracking, wasn't just a habit, it was a warning. Valric watched the general disappear into the shadows, unease creeping into his thoughts. For all his bravado, he couldn't deny the chill that had run down his spine when the human cracked his knuckles. He shook his head, trying to dispel the growing paranoia, and turned back toward the diplomatic chamber. The weight of silence. Back in the chamber, Captain Harper stood alone once more. The delegates had left in a flurry of whispers and furtive glances, their unease palpable. He leaned casually against the crystalline table, his expression unreadable as he replayed the meeting in his mind. "Fascinating," he murmured to himself. Harper hadn't anticipated that such a simple gesture would provoke such a dramatic reaction. It was as though the sound had tapped into some deep, collective fear within the aliens, a fear of the unknown, of unpredictability. His thoughts were interrupted by the soft chime of his communicator. He pressed a finger to his earpiece, activating the secure channel. "Harper here." A familiar voice crackled through the line. It was Admiral Rhodes, back on Earth. "Captain, report. How did the meeting go?" Harper allowed himself a small smile. "It went differently than expected, Admiral. Let's just say we've discovered an unexpected advantage." "An advantage?" Rhodes's tone was cautious but intrigued. "Explain." Harper straightened, his voice taking on a more serious tone. "They're afraid of us, sir. Or rather, they're afraid of what we might be capable of. A simple sound, cracking my knuckles, sent them into a near panic. One of their generals even recounted a story about a human mercenary who defeated an entire battalion. It seems our reputation precedes us. There was a pause on the other end of the line, and Harper could almost hear the wheels turning in Rhodes's mind. Finally, the Admiral spoke. Interesting. Very interesting. We'll need to consider how to use this perception to our advantage. For now, keep playing the diplomat, but don't let your guard down. Understood, sir, Harper replied. I'll keep you updated. As the channel closed, Harper leaned back against the table, his thoughts drifting once more. Fear was a powerful weapon, and it seemed humanity had stumbled upon a reservoir of it without even trying. But fear could also be dangerous, volatile, unpredictable. If not handled carefully, it could turn allies into enemies and escalate tensions into open conflict. A warning remembered. Elsewhere on the ship, General Iraq stood in a private observation room, staring out at the stars. His reflection in the glass was that of a warrior haunted by failure. The ice plains of Taraxis IV were burned into his memory, a battlefield where his greatest strength had been turned into weakness by a single human. The sound of cracking knuckles had been the prelude to destruction. Iraq clenched his fists, his resolve hardening. We underestimated them once, he muttered to himself. We won't make that mistake again. But even as he spoke the words, a part of him wondered if it was already too late. Whispers of the unknown. The Stellar Accord flagship was alive with muted tension. Hushed whispers filled its corridors, spreading like ripples across a pond. From maintenance drones to high-ranking officials, the same question lingered on every mind. What made humans so dangerous? It wasn't just their technology or their adaptability. It was something far more elusive. Deep in the ship's intelligence hub, a pale blue creature known as Archivist Kex floated above an array of holographic displays. Kex was the repository of the Accord's collective knowledge, tasked with cataloging every species in the galaxy. The Archivist's form shimmered faintly, its translucent body pulsing with light as it sifted through thousands of reports. Humans, it muttered in its own language, a series of clicks and hums that the translator barely caught. Primitive, and yet, Kex paused, its tendrils curling in thought. The files on humans were frustratingly incomplete, full of contradictions. Peaceful explorers one moment, ruthless warriors the next. They had tamed their homeworld, ventured into the void, and confronted challenges that should have broken them. And yet they thrived. The archivist opened a classified file marked Taraxis IV Incident. The detailed account came from General Iraq himself, a first-hand report of the battle that had left a lasting scar on the Accord's military pride. Kex scanned the text, its glow dimming as it absorbed the grim details. One human, Kex whispered, 1 against 100. The report described tactics so unconventional they bordered on reckless. The mercenary had exploited every weakness, every oversight, moving with a precision that suggested not just skill, but an almost terrifying intuition. And then there was the sound, an ordinary biological quirk that had somehow become a psychological weapon, a sound that preceded destruction. The ripple effect. Elsewhere, Captain Harper was unaware of the storm his presence had unleashed. He strolled through one of the flagship's many observation decks, his hands clasped behind his back as he admired the view. Stars stretched endlessly before him, a glittering expanse that made him feel both small and powerful. He wasn't alone for long. A soft voice broke the silence. Captain Harper. He turned to see Speaker Oren, its translucent form hovering a few feet off the ground. Its glow was dimmer than usual, a sign of uncertainty. Harper offered a polite nod. Speaker Oren, what can I do for you? The alien hesitated, its bioluminescent eyes flickering. I wish to understand your kind, Captain. Your unpredictability unsettles many among us. Harper raised an eyebrow. Unpredictability. I'd call it adaptability. Perhaps, Oren conceded, but there is something more. General Durak speaks of a human mercenary, a singular force that destroyed his battalion. The story has spread, and now, even the bravest among us feel unease. Harper leaned against the railing, his expression thoughtful. Fear of the unknown can be a powerful thing. But let me ask you, speaker, why do you think one human was able to do what an entire battalion could not? Oran's glow pulsed faintly, a sign of deep thought. We rely on strategy, on predictable patterns. Perhaps your kind thrives because you embrace chaos. Harper smiled faintly. Chaos isn't the right word. It's more about finding opportunity in chaos. Humans don't always have the strongest weapons or the largest armies, but we make do. We learn, adapt, and if necessary, fight with everything we've got. Oran tilted its head, its glow brightening slightly. You speak as though conflict is your nature. Harper shook his head. Not our nature, speaker. Our history. We've been fighting since the day we learned to walk upright. Against predators, against the elements, even against ourselves. It's taught us one thing. Survival isn't about strength. It's about determination. The speaker remained silent, absorbing the words. Finally, it spoke softly. Perhaps we have underestimated the weight of your history. The catalyst. Back in the intelligence hub, Archivist Kex concluded its analysis. The report on humans was incomplete, but one thing was clear. They were far more dangerous than their size and numbers suggested. Their unpredictability wasn't a flaw. It was their greatest strength. Kex activated a secure channel, its tendrils weaving through a holographic interface. The image of General Durak appeared, his imposing figure dwarfing the archivist. General, Kex began, its tone grave. I have reviewed the human files. If the stories are true, they pose a greater threat than we anticipated. Durak's expression hardened. I already know this. Archivist, what do you propose? Kex hesitated, its glow flickering. We must tread carefully. Fear can unite, but it can also divide. If the delegation views humans as a threat, it may provoke a war we are unprepared to fight. Durak grunted, his gaze unwavering. Then let us hope this Captain Harper is as reasonable as he seems. But mark my words, Archivist, if humans are as formidable as their reputation suggests, we may be facing a reckoning far sooner than we think. The channel closed, leaving Kex alone with its thoughts. As it floated silently in the dim room, a single question lingered. Was humanity truly an ally, or the beginning of the Accord's undoing? The silent tension. The stellar Accord flagship's engine hummed steadily, a rhythmic pulse that resonated throughout the vast corridors. Despite its soothing cadence, the atmosphere on board was anything but calm. Across the ship's diplomatic wing, the tension was palpable, a force felt in every interaction, every passing glance. The delegates had left the chamber hours ago, but the weight of Captain Harper's presence lingered. In a secluded chamber adorned with holographic projections of interstellar maps, Ambassador Valric sat with his claws tapping nervously against the crystalline surface of a conference table. His crimson scales had dulled to a muted burgundy, a clear sign of stress. He wasn't alone. Speaker Oran hovered nearby, its translucent form flickering like a dim lantern, while General Durak stood at the far end of the room, his imposing figure dominating the space. This cannot continue, Valric hissed, breaking the silence. We are allowing ourselves to be manipulated by fear. That human, he's exploiting our hesitation. Speaker Oran pulsed faintly, its bioluminescent eyes casting soft light onto the walls. I do not believe Captain Harper is exploiting anything. If anything, he seems as surprised by our reaction as we are. Valric snapped his gaze toward Oran. Surprised or not, the effect is the same. Humans have become a symbol of chaos, and chaos is a threat to the Accord. General Durak remained silent, his forearms crossed over his broad chest. When he finally spoke, his voice was a low rumble. Chaos is a threat only when one fails to understand it. The human mercenary on Taraxis IV thrived because we did not adapt. Harper may not be a warrior, but he is no less dangerous. Valric's claws stilled, his eyes narrowing. And what do you propose, General? That we treat every human as a potential adversary. That we dismantle years of diplomatic progress over a sound. Urach stepped forward, his presence commanding. I propose we learn, understand their nature. Because if we do not, we will be caught unprepared again. And next time, it may not end with a single battle. The human factor. Meanwhile, Captain Harper had retreated to his quarters. The small room was a far cry from the sprawling luxury of the Accord's halls, but it suited him. It was quiet, and the solitude gave him space to think. He sat at a small desk, his communicator blinking softly beside him. A tablet displaying Earth's recent diplomatic updates lay untouched. Harper leaned back in his chair, staring at the ceiling as the day's events replayed in his mind. The reaction to his knuckle cracking had been startling, even amusing at first, but the more he thought about it, the more he realized the depth of the alien's fear. It wasn't just the sound, it was what it represented. To them, humans were an unknown quantity, a species that defied their carefully constructed systems of logic and order. The communicator buzzed, snapping Harper out of his thoughts. He activated it, and Admiral Rhodes's face appeared on the screen. Captain, Rhodes began, his tone brisk. I've received your report. This reaction to your knuckle cracking. Do you believe it's an isolated incident or something deeper? Harper considered the question carefully. Deeper, Admiral. It's not just the sound. It's what it symbolizes to them. Humans don't follow the same rules as the rest of the galaxy. We improvise, adapt, and frankly, we make them nervous. Rhodes nodded slowly. And how do you plan to proceed? Carefully, Harper said. The Accord delegates are teetering on the edge of fear and respect. If we push too hard, they may see us as a threat. But if we can channel that fear into curiosity, into collaboration, we might turn it into an advantage. The Admiral's expression softened slightly, a rare moment of approval. Good. Keep me updated, Harper. This could be bigger than any of us realize. The screen dimmed as the call ended, leaving Harper alone once more. He let out a slow breath and cracked his knuckles absent-mindedly, the sound echoing softly in the confined space. The spark of doubt. Back in the intelligence hub, Archivist Kex floated amidst a sea of data. It had reviewed every available record on humanity, from their first contact with alien species to their most recent technological advancements. But the more it studied, the more questions emerged. They are an anomaly, Kex muttered, its tendrils typing furiously. A species that thrives on contradictions, cooperative yet combative, fragile yet enduring. The archivist paused, opening a secure file marked Cultural Observations. Within, it found a curious entry, a report on human behavior during times of stress. The document highlighted their penchant for humor, for creating moments of levity even in dire situations. It described their capacity to unite under pressure, to find strength in adversity. They weaponized their own imperfections, Kex murmured, its glow dimming. How do you fight a species that turns every weakness into a strength? The archivist's thoughts were interrupted by an incoming transmission. It was from the Accord's High Council, a rare and urgent summons. Kex hesitated, its bioluminescent glow flickering with unease. Whatever decision the Council was about to make, it would shape the future of the galaxy. The Council's gambit. The Stellar Accord's High Council chamber was a marvel of alien engineering, a colossal dome suspended in the void of space. Transparent walls offered an unobstructed view of the galaxy beyond, a swirling canvas of stars and nebulae that seemed almost close enough to touch. It was a place meant to inspire awe and unity, but today it was a crucible of division. At the center of the chamber, a circular platform rotated slowly, holding holographic projections of the Accord's most influential figures. Ambassador Valric stood among them, his crimson scales dull under the projection's light. Beside him floated Speaker Oran, its translucent form dim and hesitant, while General Uruk loomed large, his shadow cast long against the shimmering floor. The air crackled with tension as Archivist Kex's image materialized before them. The being's pale blue glow pulsed faintly, betraying its unease. "Members of the High Council," Kex began, its voice steady despite the gravity of the moment, "I have completed my analysis of the human species. The data is troubling." Valric's claws clicked against the floor as he stepped forward. "Troubling how, Archivist? Are they not simply another young, reckless species seeking their place in the galaxy?" Kex's glow brightened slightly, signaling irritation. "If only it were that simple, Ambassador. Humans are unlike any species we've encountered. They defy patterns, operate outside established norms, and thrive under conditions that would cripple most civilizations. Their unpredictability is both their strength and their greatest weapon." General Uruk's deep voice rumbled through the chamber. "We've already seen what one human can do on the battlefield. Now we have one standing in this very ship, negotiating as though he holds all the cards. The question is, what do we do about it?" The weight of a decision. Silence followed Uruk's question, each delegate lost in their own thoughts. It was Oran who finally broke it, its soft, resonant voice carrying a tone of caution. "We must be careful," Oran said, its bioluminescent eyes flickering. "To act out of fear would undermine everything the Accord stands for. Humanity has shown they are capable of great resilience, yes, but also of cooperation. Perhaps Captain Harper represents an opportunity, not a threat." Valric scoffed, his tail flicking in agitation. "Opportunity. That sound he made, those cracks, it has sown chaos among our ranks. Even now, rumors spread like wildfire. Fear grips our people. How can we call this an opportunity? Because fear, Oran countered, can be the beginning of understanding. If we take the time to learn from them, we may find that humanity's unpredictability can complement our order." Uruk grunted but said nothing, his expression unreadable. Kex observed the exchange in silence, its tendrils coiling thoughtfully. Finally, the Archivist spoke. "Fear and respect are closely intertwined," Kex said. "If we approach humanity with caution but also with open minds, we may unlock new paths forward. But if we allow fear to dictate our actions, we risk turning them into adversaries." The humans gamble. While the council debated, Captain Harper stood on the observation deck, gazing out at the stars. The flagship's sleek design cast a faint reflection of his face against the vast expanse, a reminder of the role he now played in shaping humanity's future. His communicator buzzed softly. Harper activated it, and a familiar voice greeted him. "Harper," Admiral Rhodes said, his tone direct. "We've intercepted whispers from the Accord. They're deliberating how to handle us. What's your read on the situation?" Harper crossed his arms, his gaze never leaving the stars. "They're cautious, Admiral. Maybe even afraid. But it's not fear of what we've done. It's fear of what we might do. They're grappling with the unknown." Rhodes's voice softened, a rare occurrence. "And you? How do you plan to navigate this?" "With honesty," Harper said after a pause, "but also with strategy. I want them to see humanity for what we are. Flawed, yes, but capable of extraordinary things. If we can balance their fear with respect, we might come out of this stronger." The Admiral was silent for a moment before replying. "You've got a fine line to walk, Captain. Don't slip." "I don't intend to," Harper said with a faint smile. The communicator clicked off, leaving him alone with his thoughts. The line between fear and respect. Back in the High Council chamber, the debate raged on. Uruk finally stepped forward, his imposing figure silencing the room. "Fear can be a weapon," he said, his voice steady. "But it can also be a weakness. If we are to face humanity, we must do so not with trembling hands, but with open eyes." Kex nodded, its glow brightening. "Then it is decided. We will approach Captain Harper with a proposition, one that tests their resolve and reveals their true intentions. Let humanity show us what they truly are. As the council murmured its agreement, Yurok's gaze hardened. And if they fail? Kex's voice was cold, calculated. Then we will have our answer. The test of resolve. The Stellar Accord flagship's negotiation chamber was transformed overnight. What had been a pristine diplomatic space now bristled with holographic projections of galactic maps, fleet deployments, and carefully curated dossiers on humanity. At its center, Captain Elias Harper stood, his expression calm but inwardly curious. The shift in the room's atmosphere was unmistakable. Facing him was the full delegation of the Accord. Ambassador Valric's claws clicked softly against the crystalline table. Speaker Oren's bioluminescent glow pulsed faintly with tension, and General Urok loomed at the back, his presence as imposing as ever. Archivist Kex floated nearby, its translucent form projecting an air of quiet calculation. "We have debated long into the cycle," Valric began, his voice measured but sharp. "And we have decided that words alone will no longer suffice. Actions, Captain Harper, speak louder." Harper raised an eyebrow, folding his arms casually. "Actions? What exactly do you have in mind, Ambassador?" Speaker Oren floated closer, its tone softer, but no less firm. "We have devised a challenge, a test of your kind's resolve. It is not intended as an act of aggression, but rather as an opportunity for understanding." Harper's lips twitched into a faint smile. "A challenge, huh? Sounds like you've put some thought into this." General Urok stepped forward, his deep voice cutting through the tension. "This is no mere game, human. If you succeed, it will demonstrate that your species is as capable as you claim. If you fail, well, failure carries its own consequences." The statement hung in the air, heavy with unspoken implications. Harper let the silence stretch, meeting the gaze of each delegate in turn. Finally, he nodded. "All right. What's the challenge?" The trial unveiled. Archivist Kex floated higher, its tendrils weaving a holographic projection into the air. The image depicted an asteroid field orbiting a dying star, its gravitational pull creating violent surges of energy. Amidst the chaos, a derelict ship floated, its design unfamiliar to Harper. "This is the Aetherium Drift," Kex explained, its voice calm and precise, "an ancient vessel abandoned centuries ago. Its systems are unstable, and its location perilous. However, it contains a wealth of knowledge, artifacts and data from civilizations long lost." Valric interjected, his tone sharper. "We have long sought access to this ship, but our attempts to retrieve its contents have been met with failure. The field is too dangerous for most of our vessels, and the ship's defenses remain active." Harper tilted his head. "And you want me to retrieve it?" "Precisely," Kex replied. "You will have the assistance of one of our ships to navigate the field, but the retrieval and extraction are your responsibility." Harper considered the hologram, his mind racing through possibilities. The task was risky, but not impossible. More importantly, it was a rare chance to prove humanity's ingenuity on a galactic stage. "And what happens if I succeed?" he asked, his voice steady. Speaker Oran pulsed brighter. "Then you will have shown the Accord that humanity is not merely a species of chaos, but one capable of contributing to the galaxy's future." "And if I fail?" Harper's tone was almost casual, but his gaze was sharp. General Urok's voice rumbled like distant thunder. "Then the Accord will consider your kind a liability." Preparation and doubt. Harper left the chamber with a faint smirk, but as he walked the halls of the flagship, the weight of the task settled on him. The asteroid field was a death trap, and the derelict ship was a puzzle wrapped in uncertainty. Still, there was no room for hesitation. Humanity's reputation hung in the balance. In his quarters, he activated his communicator. "Admiral Rhodes, I need a tactical briefing on the Aetherium Drift. Pull any data we have on ancient ships matching the description they provided." Rhodes's voice came through, crisp and focused. "Understood, "Captain." And Harper, "Be careful. This isn't just about the mission. The Accord is testing us, but they're also looking for an excuse to write us off. Don't give them one." "I don't plan to," Harper replied, closing the channel. He leaned back in his chair, staring at the ceiling as his mind pieced together a plan. The journey begins. The following cycle, Harper boarded the Accord's scout vessel, a sleek ship designed for agility rather than combat. The crew consisted of 3 alien specialists, none of whom seemed particularly thrilled to have a human aboard. The pilot, a sharp-featured being named Trellis, glanced at Harper with open skepticism. "Your kind thrives on chaos," Trellis muttered as they prepared for launch. "Let's hope you don't get us all killed." Harper grinned, his voice light but firm. "Stick with me, Trellis. Chaos has its advantages." The ship slipped into hyperspace, the stars stretching into streaks of light. As they approached the asteroid field, the energy surges became visible, violent arcs of plasma that lit up the darkness like celestial lightning. The derelict ship loomed ahead, its massive frame pockmarked with age and damage. Harper tightened his grip on the console, his focus sharpening. "Let's see what humanity can do."